Hello, I'm Marc Souza, president of Musimagem Brazil and director of this Musimagem festival that now is 10th festival, and we are here first time in Curitiba, south of Brazil, in the university, UNESPAR University, with some students, composers. Is the third day of the festival, and it's a great pleasure to be here in this great and important meeting. I was living in Madrid, and I met this great guy, Ivars, great composer and human being. And then that time I knew Musimagem Spain. And then 2008, I brought this idea to Brazil, and then we start in 2008, Musimagem Brazil, Association of Composers of Audiovisual. In 2015, I was president, first time, and I created with our colleagues in direction this festival. And then we are here, and I think this meeting is very important. Thank you, Luis. You will moderate and open the work, and only to say hello our guests, and also I'm very happy to be here with Chile, Colombia, that I was director of music in the Ministry of Culture, and I met some important people in the Latin America, composers, musicians, and directors, and also, yeah, and Marco Souza, the same name of my, it's great to be here with you, Marcos. And well, and Marc and ECSA. Yeah, fantastic. Luis, okay. Your turn.
Thank you.
Before, sorry, the professor Ricardo Petraca asked to speak a little bit in Portuguese for the audience. Então, essa é uma mesa muito importante. O Luiz Ivars, ele é membro da ECSA, a Aliança de Compositores Europeia. A gente está com o diretor da mesa da ECSA aqui, o Marc. A gente está com compositores da Colômbia, do Chile. A gente está com o Marco Souza, mesmo nome que o meu, do Ministério da Cultura, da área de propriedade intelectual, coordenador da área do departamento. O nosso Felipe Radicetti, que é a nossa cabeça pensante da Musimagem dos direitos autorais. O Luiz Ivars vai moderar. Vocês podem ouvir no YouTube, no fone, tá bom? A tradução.
Thank you. Gracias. Bienvenidos, bienvenidos. Welcome everybody to this new edition of the International Creators Dialogue. This year is dedicated to addressing the common challenges faced by audiovisual composers in Europe and Latin America. So this is an initiative we have developed from our Alliance of European Composers and Songwriters, ECSA. And we are really, really grateful to Musimagem. Thank you, Marcos and Felipe, for hosting us this 2024 edition inside your marvelous film music festival in Curitiba. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Asociación Colombiana de Compositores de Música para Cine, MUCINE. Welcome, José Riucarte, and welcome our Secretary General, Marc Moulin. Hello, everybody. But first of all, due to his tight agenda, I want to give the floor to Felipe Radicetti to introduce us Marcos Alves Souza. Please.
Thank you, Luis. Firstly, I would like to thank very much for this invitation to take part in this so important meeting here. And I'm very glad to introduce Marcos Alves de Souza, representing the Ministry of Culture from Brazil. So I would like to say some words about him. He has a master's degree in anthropology and specialist career in public policies and government management at the Ministry of Management and Innovation and Public Services. He led the copyright area at the Ministry of Culture between 2004 and 2016. At Ministry of Culture, he was one of the Brazilian government's experts in the negotiations that resulted in the UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of Cultural Diversity. Under his leadership, Brazil presented a proposal for a treaty on access for blind people and those with difficulty accessing printed text, which resulted in the WIPO-Marrakech Treaty. So this is Marcos Alves de Souza.
We should have some music for this moment.
Marcos, pode ir. Tá ouvindo a gente? Pode ir.
Yes.
Dá um oi. Yeah, hello.
Thank you, Felipe. As Felipe said, I am a public servant in the Brazilian government and have worked for over 20 years with copyright at the Ministry of Culture. I am currently the Secretary of Copyright and Intellectual Rights, the body responsible for the regulation in this matter at the national level. And in other words, I am the head of copyright office here in Brazil. And as Felipe said, I am an anthropologist which leads me to have a vision of copyright that focuses on people, on creators. And I'm very proud to be at this event and would like to thank the organizers for the invitation, especially Felipe, Radicetti, an old friend, and my Xará, as this is a Brazilian expression when two persons have the same name. My Xará, Marcos Souza, which have a very beautiful name. Thank you. And I have followed and encouraged the creation of Musimagem Brazil from the very beginning, and I'm so happy to see how far Musimagem has come. And I'm here. I'm all right. As to say, I'm happy and I'm very interested to discuss with you these issues that the program of this festival have appointed, especially about artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marcos. I want to highlight the importance of to have real-time communication with between the politicians and the composers and the creators, because politicians in charge of intellectual property and cultural issues needs to have the real information about the problems the creators are living to protect this ecosystem for a fairer culture. And for that, thank you very much, Marcos, for being here and for having an open attitude to help. Right now, we just move forward and go to enter on the first issue of the day. First of all, I want to say that the International Creators Dialogue tried to foster dialogue and collaboration between European composers and Latin American in this edition. And it means that we can build new ways of collaboration in the future, communication, fluid communication, and try to be really informed in real time about our common problems and try to find common solutions. That's a way. The same way we would like to address contemporary issues in the music industry is what we are going to do, such as digital transformation, AI, music streaming mainly, and of course, fair contractual practices, among others, we are going to share. And West, we are sharing insights, concerns, and best practices on the above issues. And as I have said, just to strengthening the collective efforts to advocate for a fair and sustainable music ecosystem. So here we go to the issue of the fairness and transparency in music contractual practices. It means mainly contracts. We are all aware that the digital world has changed the rules of the old analog market. But for us composers, it's not been very positive, I have to say, when it comes to the contracts area. Unfair contractual practices such as buyouts and coercive publishing are too much common, unfortunately, and affect us, the creators, in a very, very negative way. Are really common everywhere in the world, and we are going to discover how it's working here in Latin America and actually in Europe, and all the movements we have done to just try to fight against them, and how to continue in the future. So I think it's the moment to give the floor to Felipe Radicetti and ask him if what's the situation in Brazil about the contracts, just for publishing contracts, for buyout contracts, this kind of unfair contracts, or please let us know what's the situation.
Hello. Well, it is working. Okay. I think the most important thing is to stress that the buyout contracts are viral in Brazil. Everybody is being forced to sign. So you sign or you are out. So the problem is because they are accepting such situation, and of course it's understandable why they are responding like this. Once they are all signing, we can see the process is naturalizing day after day. So we can say this kind of practice is turning into a natural behavior, and everybody is understanding that the comparison of the forces between a composer and all the enterprises involved in the contracts is an overwhelming disparity of forces. So what can we do? But mainly we could also stress that all the people must reunite in order to discuss if we can stand this way or not. And more, what the government is able to help the composers to find a way out in this problem.
Very good. This is a very good appreciation that buyouts are going to nature attitude and on the actual situation. And for that, I would like to know and give the floor to José Riucarte from the MUCINE, the Colombian Association of Film Composers. And I want to say thank you to Erika Acuña, who was the one who put us in contact. So welcome, Jose. Please, would you be so kind to introduce yourself and your association and just answer too about how is the situation and related with the contracts in Colombia?
Yes, thank you, Luis, and thank you, Musimagem, Brazil, and the festival. I've been following the different panels that has been hosting there, and everything is being very, very great, very nice. And yes, thank you, Erika, for put us in contact, and Música Mía here in Colombia for talk about music, film music. I'm a film composer and I'm a producer, creating music for movies and television. And I currently serve as the president of MUCINE, the Colombian Association of Composers for Film Music, where I represent our composers' collective work and talent and growing talent. Our mission in MUCINE is to promote and enhance the role of music in the audiovisual industry by supporting composers, not only Colombian composers, but everywhere composers, collaborating with music creators and filmmakers. And something that is very important for us is increasing the public awareness of the artistic and technical expertise involved in the creation of film music. We also work with educational programs and live performances and film concerts to achieve these goals. And we are working to create an environment for film composers and film music in Colombia. Well, as we are discussing here, to improve our condition. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much again to share my insights about what we're talking about, and it's an honor representing MUCINE here in this discussion, in this panel. About fairness and transparency. Well, I think we can see anything here. But I feel that in Colombia, the contractual practices for music has been evolving, and there is been a noticeable progress, particularly among more established production companies, especially because these companies have brought production services from these big companies like Netflix and Amazon, and they have like very like their contracts, they need to fill these obligations. So the contracts are well, at least we have contracts now. It used to be only verbal or friend, okay, let's do this music, and now we have that. I feel like these companies are beginning to embrace a culture of formal contracts for us and recognize our values as contributors to the projects. And I feel that that's been our mission, like to visualize that, like the music is part of the process, is part of the film, is part of the product, and it's important for us to be like an important part in the role. Also, it's been an effort to educate ourselves, both composers and producers, and the importance of to educate also the legal teams that sometimes are complicated, lawyers that tend to take a unidirectional approach that doesn't always consider the unique uh, nuances of music creation process. Um, I, I still feel that small productions sometimes they feel like the only way to do their music is the buyout, and me, I and MUCINE, we try to educate them and say like, no, that's not the only way. I try to understand why they think that, why the lawyer is telling them you should acquire all the rights to do a buyout, which it doesn't make any sense. And in that process, that the small companies that they don't have the knowledge, they usually do that, and there are ways to protect the at least the royalties for the composers. And we, since a few years ago, we have a law here that is called the law Pepe Sanchez, that was created for directors and writers to protect their royalties. And in that law here, it includes all the rights holders, so that include us. So that put us like one step ahead of the negotiation, so we can say, okay, no, we can not give you all our rights, because there is this law here in Colombia that protect us, and we have to keep at least our royalties, like the public communication. So, but sometimes there are people that they don't know that. So as an association, we try to stay together and try to be on those negotiations. If most of the time, like younger composers, they don't know about that, or new composers that are coming into the field, they don't know that. But always we have to keep pulling and and living, like pulling, like, okay, we have to stay on top of everything, because there are some companies that they want to go up above that. And I think it's something that we have to keep educating the people, to understand the role of the composer, to understand the different situation that we can be, like the different kind of productions that we can be. That is not the same to do a huge orchestra a production, and to do like something inside in the box. So for us, it's very important also to keep like the side of the budgets, um, so we can make this profession viable, uh, and ensure that we are building an industry with solid foundation, and we are like growing our talent rather than diminish our talent because of we are not able to live uh, doing what we do. So I think we are in a good path, but we have to continue creating more laws. Being, I think, is the government is a very important part. The laws that we can create through our governments, I believe is the only way that we can ensure for sure that we are gonna be safe, and also the associations, like being together as composers and talking as a group and not as individuals, that also helps to keep that transparency and fairness in this business.
Thank you, Jose. You are absolutely right. Education is really relevant, but even more important to fight together with trying to get laws that protect everybody, because it's very difficult for a single composer confront or put battle against a big company, and that's that we have to do. I will ask Felipe later about this issue of the laws. But first of all, I want to introduce Marc Moulin, our Secretary General of ECSA. And he can show us the situation in Europe. We have been fighting, we have battled for years against this issue. So I think nothing better than Marc can resume us the situation. Please, Marc.
Thank you so much, Luis. Muchísimas gracias, and thank you to Musimagem for hosting us. I would love to be in Brazil with all of you. I'm here in Brussels. It's a bit colder, I guess, but so I would love to join Brazil next time. Thank you, Luis. So maybe just a few words before starting about ECSA. ECSA is the European Composer and Songwriter Alliance. We represent 59 associations of composers and songwriters with 30,000 professionals across 27 countries. We have been created in 2007 by federating all composer association in Europe, and we have one special committee, and Luis is vice chair of the committee of the FACE committee, which is the one dealing with challenges and issues of composers of audiovisual music. So I think this debate is very interesting because we clearly share common challenges. Also because obviously now the world has become much more global, and so we face the practices of global platforms. About this, for us, the main one of I will maybe start with that you have always, as you said before, there is always a weak bargaining position of the composer in relationship to one big platform. And as you know, those platforms have become bigger with the time and with globalization. And one big issue that I see for composers is the fact that all those contracts are signed under non-disclosure agreements, which means that they are confidential and that composers are not able to say anything about them. And this is one big issue, because if we want to denounce or inform policymakers, the public, about those practices, often our members, composers, they don't have the right to share those contracts. And I think this is one big issue. Then I wanted to speak about buyout. It's been indeed a big issue for our members. It continues to be. It's basically, just to put a bit of a definition, it's practices which involves creators giving all their rights in exchange of a lump sum, and preventing composers to get any future revenues for the exploitation of their music. In 2 years ago, we had a survey with our members in Europe where 53% of them said that they experienced buyout contract. And they also, almost half of them said that it's one of the main challenges to their fair remuneration. What we see as well is another harmful practice, which we would call mandatory publishing or fake publishing or ghost publishing. It's a practice where you have producers or broadcasters, they always ask to composers their publishing rights as a non-negotiable condition to sign the contract. And then, but then those publishing rights, our members, they get nothing in exchange, and they don't get anything, any transparent information about the exploitation of their works. And according to the survey we did 2 years ago, 2/3 of our members are experiencing such practices. So what we've been trying to do in Brussels, in the EU, is to push for better laws. We did that before 2019 on the copyright on the copyright directive in the digital single market, which has put some principles and some obligation in place. So there is one principle of appropriate and proportionate remuneration, and obligation to inform authors about the exploitation of their work. So those are two very important provisions, but very often we see in contracts that big VOD services, they are trying to circumvent, to avoid those laws by putting American law in the contract. And very often, as was said before, it's impossible for composers to talk about those practices, but also if they want to go to a judge and denounce those practices, they need to go to California. So there is some kind of Americanization of those practices, which has a big impact in Europe, even though it should be the European laws applying in Europe. So we see, and now, so we, 1 month ago, we published one manifesto in which we have, we set all the priorities of music authors for policymakers in the EU, and we have, it's about AI, music streaming, but also very much about audiovisual composers contract. And we will publish in the coming weeks one report to show also the prevalence of the buyout practices, the coercive publishing practices on our members. And we will continue to, there has been a lot of reports already in the European Parliament and from the Council of the European Union to denounce those practices. And now we think it's the good moment for policymakers to really act on those issues.
Good point, Marc. There is a very important thing to highlight. Yes, we are highly Americanizing our legal frames of contracts, but there is a difference between the budgets that the American composers are paid in USA doing a buyout and the European, I know you in Brazil and Colombia, but I have to say that once you lose all your rights, you have a big budget. This is the case of many composers in the USA, but we are not feeling that we receive much more money than the previous contracts we signed with our author rights for us, no? So it means that is a smashing practice, and really what they are doing is thieving the economy of the creators, because creators are not going to receive the reward of the success of his product. And on the other hand, this money is flying to the USA, to the platforms. So they are not paying more for making a buyout, and on the other hand, they are thieving the money of the creators. So it means loose cultural diversity, lose the power of the creators in make a strong career. And for that, the need is just right to go to the politicians as a very unique voice defending the common interest of the creators, and try to save the situation from hard, big laws or hard strength in the laws defending these points. I wanted to come back to Felipe. Are there any specific laws or initiatives implemented too in the Brazilian government, across the Brazilian government, as Jose and Marc has said?
Well, related to the buyout, I would like to know more about this because I don't have any news about the regulations. I don't know. When you answered, when you said you would like to know how was going with the Brazilians, I would answer you better not. But I can say this very similar. So maybe we could ask to Marcos Alves de Souza to talk about a little bit about this.
Yeah, really. You have the opportunity. You have a close relation. I can see. So why not? It's something that you should put in the table. So Jose, are you there?
Yes, here, listening.
Yes, that's very important to know. We have in Europe very clear that we have a European Parliament and we can go there. We are doing weekly, we are daily even. Marc is absolutely known there. It's because he's participating in a lot of meetings and discussions. So it's really relevant that the members of the Parliament, the European Parliament, see that the composers have a voice. How do you deal this in Latin America? How could you improve this relation in Latin America?
Yes, well, as I said, first of all, the organization of composers, that is something that's been difficult through the years. Like, if you know, like there in the United States, in California, there are unions for everything, right? Like directors, writers, actors, everything, gaffer, grip, everybody is in a union except composers. We don't have that. We are working on that here, so we can protect ourselves for future developments that comes with what we're gonna address later, that is the AI. But I think the first step is go together the composers as one voice to the politicians. Here we have also the parliament in Colombia. And I think it's very important to work together with the Colombian production companies, right? So they don't do everything as Netflix or whatever, Disney or whatever platform said, right? So, okay, no, we have some rules established here. And I feel that some of them respect those rules, some of them not, especially in video games, like because of the nature of the video game, it's always been the buyout, always. It's kind of difficult to change that, but I think we have to keep pushing that option, especially in what Marc was talking about, that is the publishing part, because I would say that even the writer chair, because like there are those online games that people can see in Twitch or YouTube or things like that, like they can probably pay those royalties too. But we have to keep pushing that and pushing that that the rules has to be respected, and we try to do that. As I said before, the education is very important, and there is something that is very hard that I was talking with a lawyer, like she was trying to convince me on something, and she was saying something and I didn't understand. I don't understand what you're saying. And she was like, okay, but this is so obvious. And no, it's not obvious for me. I'm a musician. I've been working on my craft for my whole life. I don't have to know that. You have to explain it to me. Like, to take that stand, as I said, like, okay, you have to explain that better to me and learn as much as possible and go together with these lawyers and talk about, okay, this is not fair. This is not the way that it should be. And they understand. At the end, they understand, especially because production companies, they also have creators inside of those production companies, and they want to keep the rights too, right? The directors want to keep the right, the writers, they want also to keep the rights. So we all have to fight together against those buyouts. As I kind of understand the buyout thing, as if I was the producer, because it's very simple for them, but is at the end is going to be bad for the whole business, right? Because if we cannot sustain ourselves, like doing what we do, like the workforce is going to come to an end, and that's not good for any of them, right? Any of us. So it's very important to make them understand that too. Like, it's not only, okay, I'm gonna give you everything, because then what I'm gonna keep and how I'm gonna survive. And at the end, if you need music, how you're gonna get the music if there are not composers to work with, because they are all broke, right? So there are too many issues there, right? But I want to leave it there so we can keep the discussion. There is something that you mentioned that is very important here, and we're working on that. And you said, like, the budgets in California, in the United States, are not the same in Europe and are not the same in Colombia. We call it here the services. I think that's one challenge that in Colombia we have to address, like the perception of the service, that generalized notion that because the work is made in Colombia, the service is going to be cheaper. It should be cheaper. Well, we can negotiate that, right? Not necessary, because the product sometimes is the same, right? And it costs the same. While many large production companies in the US has the appropriate budget to do the whole execution as it should be. Here, sometimes they hire the people, and the local execution, the production often has significant budget cuts. That's something that we have to change. That's something that we have to address in countries like, I don't know in Brazil if it's the same. I suppose it is. But in Colombia, that's something that we have to negotiate and step by step change.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Marcos Alves is still connected. Yes, are you
Yes,
there,
I'm
Marcos?
here. I'm
Okay,
here.
would be great once we have an expert, politician related with intellectual property and also rights, and could be great to know about your perception of this problem that we are sharing here between European and Latin American composers about the buyouts.
Okay, in Brazil, we have two kinds of problems with buyouts. First of all, we have just one digital platform that it's a bigger one for audiovisual that tried to apply a buyout here with compositions and every kind of creation related to music and in audiovisual works. But they have a big problem with our system of collecting societies, because I don't know if you know, in Brazil we have a system in music with 2 layers, and the collecting layer is called ECAD, and ECAD action in the justice against this platform, and the buyout is not until now is not a reality in terms of the application of a buyout by this platform. The other problem of buyout is with our broadcasting organizations, that is to national digital platforms. They have a strong contractual practices against the composers, and they earns half of the money of the compositions, as if they are an author, but it's very strange, because in Brazilian legislation, a company, it's not possible to be an author, and this is a worst practice in contractual practice with music sector. But in my view, first, about a digital platform, we are trying to solve the problem of the lack of transparency and the buyout through a bill, and also trying to take the discussion in WIPO, as you know, because the so-called new WIPO, new treaties of WIPO clearly do not solve the problem, and they are the part of the problem, not the solution. But the European Union, as you know, and United States have been against this discussion at the WIPO. And the reality is today, in the digital environment, just only phonogram producers have benefits. The reality is that in the world. But about Brazilian situation, in my view, first, it's important to emphasize that in Brazil, the law prevails over the negotiation. This means that contractual clauses that conflict with legal provisions are null and void. Next, it's important to clarify that copyright is a branch of private law. Therefore, legal transactions involving copyright must comply not only with the copyright law, but also with other legislation, especially the civil code. And in our civil code, there are provisions that fit perfectly as remedies to combat abuse and lack of transparency in contractual practices to which music creators are often subjected. For instance, Article 157 of the Civil Code provides that an injury is committed when a person, under pressing necessity or due to inexperience, is obligated to perform a service that is clearly disproportionate to the value of the corresponding service. This situation is quite common in the artistic world. Therefore, the judge can declare the transaction null and may order additional payments to the injured party to keep the transaction valid. The problem is that in many cases, creators, their managers, and lawyers are unaware of the application provisions of the Civil Code or do not use them because they mistakenly believe that copyright is regulated exclusively by the copyright law. Therefore, our Secretariat has sought to influence law bills discussed in our parliament so that the texts explicitly include reference to the relevant legal provisions of the Civil Code. We have worked in this direction, for example, on the bills dealing with remuneration in digital environment and remuneration in for artificial intelligence. This clarification will be very useful for authors, artists, and their lawyers. The problem is what comes next, because companies may try to retaliate against creators who make use of the civil codes. And the way forward in this case is to file a complaint with the antitrust authority, a task that we are available to help with. And this is the situation. As José and Marc, I believe the problem is the same in Brazil, but we are working hard to change this situation here. And we expect to discuss this in international forum like WIPO. And the problem is the so-called Group B and the developed countries. And we are trying in next year again, because we believe the main problem of copyright in the world now is digital environment, of course, and artificial intelligence. Okay?
Thank you. That's clear that this is a continuous battle. And there are, for me, two differences. We have global laws and we have two national laws. Mainly, the national laws should go straight to protect the creators with all the contracts with public institutions, public TVs, public companies, or even in the aids to the cinematography. Forbidden this kind of contracts if you can have, if you want to have the aid for your film, and always you can take measures at national level, and of course, there are others far away than the contracts of the buyouts. as the author rights, to protect the author rights, the economical content of the author rights. That means that the creator will have some reward of his work to just continue living and continue developing his work. But it is the case of Spain. For example, if you sign a buyout contract in Spain, you will not lose your rights, although you have signed that, because our intellectual property law say that in case you lose all your rights, or you sign that you are giving them to the producer, you will have anyway a remuneration right, a compensation right with economical value. So we are anyway, although we sign a buyout contract, we have the revenue of the author rights. The problem is it's only under the law of Spain in the territory of Spain. The problem is if you are moving to Brazil, or your film is viewed in Asia or whatever, no? So at the end, if all the countries at national level do the same, we have solved the problem. Yes, we have a comment, but it's about it, really. Yeah. Please, but should be with a micro, because people needs to know what we are talking about. And well, interesting debate. Thank you, Marcos and Felipe and Jose. I'm waiting to know about Marc, about all these comments and next initiatives in Europe of ECSA. So in the meantime, we have a question of this issue. So I want to give the voice.
Now, exactly about you told us now, this second. So in Spain, if a creator signs a buyout, it's considered a null contract.
Yes, it's considered illegal contract. Illegal contract, but the intellectual property.
So if I sign it, I can go to the justice?
No, because the problem is that the justice is in the California or New York or whatever.
So at least it's no contract. So
it's a problem.
I sign, but I earn all my rights. That's okay.
It's not about the contract. It's about the author rights, the economical content of the author rights. You are losing your rights worldwide, but not in Spain because it's not considered illegal. You are losing in the rest of the world, but the Spanish law protect them. That's all. So Marc, are you there? Please, should be great just to close this item, to have your opinion about all we have said and the next movements of ECSA in Europe.
No, absolutely. I think it was very interesting to hear what Marco Souza said. It's very interesting to see what Brazil is doing in relationship to creators' contracts. For us, one of the big issues is that often, and of course the law is very important, but very often you have composers that don't even know that they are protected by law and that they should start legal proceedings. You know, of course, it can be very expensive, very long to start a legal proceeding. So I think there it's very important to have good laws, but it's also very important to encourage unions, the association, the role of association that they can have to inform individual composers, because otherwise individual composers, they feel very isolated and they don't feel informed about their actual rights. So it's very important to give them the tools, and not only to the individual, but also to the collective of composers.
That's right. In this way, I have to say we are really living like a normalized relation with the European Parliament between ECSA as a recognized alliance as the unique voice of the composers in Europe, having real communication with them, and it's really useful. Not always is easy to arrive to a common solution or common point of view, but it's really relevant, as Marc has said, that you should keep the value of Musimagem in Brazil as a powerful voice, as a relevant, unique voice representing the audiovisual composers, just to fight on the area of the rights and
if I
contracts.
Yeah, sorry, Luis.
Marc.
If I may just add something, I think it's very important also that policymakers or third parties or lawyers can have access to those contracts. Because otherwise, as I was saying in the beginning, if they are confidential and you can't even know the contract, of course, for policymakers, they want to work on on evidence based. And then if they don't have access to those contracts, it's very hard for them. So this is, I think, a bit the source of the issue is the fact that we should have more information. And of course, the confidentiality of contracts is preventing composers to denounce the situation. Sorry.
Really important, and this is the case in Europe. We had a meeting with open meeting with European MEPs, and it was difficult to find composers decided to open publicly about they have suffered denounced buyout contracts, because it means that you can be part immediately of the red list or black list, no? And this is a problem. So would be great to have some information about this and share it with lawyers in a certain way. So thank you, Marc, and continuing with this idea of the relevance of having a voice. I'm happy to see how Colombia and Brazil are having strength associations, but I'm missing other countries in Latin America. But it is the case of Chile, that they are trying on this movement of making an association, a new association. For that, it's relevant to give the floor to my friend, so many years, very activist of the author rights and fight for the good contracts. Ignacio Perez. Are you there, Ignacio?
Yes,
Please,
I'm
can
here,
you contact?
Luis.
All
Yes.
right.
Can you listen to
Welcome,
me?
Ignacio.
Thank you very much.
We hear
Thank
you perfectly. Please,
Okay.
can you actualize your situation in Chile?
Well, we are in a moment of the more people are getting into the audiovisual music business, I'll say, with the different production companies and different composers that are getting involved in that. In our case, it's due to get an organization of composers to get together to share this information that is so important to share, to create common knowledge, and to create a very clear understanding of the things that we are facing. That actually, if we think in terms of in a historic perspective, it's always been like that. Whether the technological developments has forced us to adapt, and that's the case, I think, with the AI as well. So we are looking forward on being researching people that are understanding the problems that we are facing, and then we have to get together to share that knowledge with our colleagues and peers, not just over Latin America, but over Europe as well. And before that, I went directly to the point, but I want to say thanks, Luis, for this invitation. Thanks for the opportunity to Musimagem Brazil, for the work that I know that comes along with the organization of an instance like this. So to continue to the other point, as I said, it's something that it's due here in Chile, but in this time I've been getting in touch with different composers, men and women that are involved in this craft, I'll say, and we need to face as well all the other challenges that you are been talking about, the coercive actions by our contracts. And actually, in my personal view, this is a thing that needs to be addressed from an ethical and aesthetical point of view. I can say, like, in a very general way of speaking, that we are facing different understandings of what author rights are, especially from the Europeans, let's say, point of view, or the copyright law in the United States. So those understandings not necessarily get aligned with the same principles. So those are the challenges, and for us to get together and to form that association is key, understanding the global and the globalization that's tied all this together.
You're a wise veteran, Ignacio, and I trust in you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you can do it. I hope you can do it. It's great to have here the image sharing the same discussion with politicians and composers. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Well, actually, with the globalization itself, of course, we're going to start, and we are facing the same problems, because again, thank God, in Spain is a little different because of their own laws, but this is something that we need to address, and sooner or later it's going to come to us without a doubt, let's say that.
Thank you. Anyway, it's a good opportunity to just establish the relation, contact with just the other associations of Colombia and Brazil, and continue together this this
and
path.
actually, I'm so glad to meet José Riucarte, which I didn't know personally, but I'm sure we're going to be continuing in touch. Personally, I'm interested in continuing in touch with you, which we're not going to do right now. But again, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks to Musimagem Brazil to be in contact as well as with them, and to have this Latin American view of defending author rights.
We wait for good news in the future. Thank you,
so.
Ignacio. Thank you. Thank you very much. Stay with us. Well, time to move to the other issue, main issue, that issue that everybody loves to talk about. The famous AI issue. Well, as you know, well, what to say? I could say hundreds of things, but much better to give the floor to our guest, Marcos Alves Souza, because as I said, he has a tight agenda and has to move out. And please, Marcos, would you be so kind to open the discussion about the AI?
Thank you, Luis. Look, we have a bill about AI regulation, and this bill is almost approved by the Senate. And regarding this bill, we are working hard to ensure that the right to remuneration of copyright holders is expressly mentioned, in addition to the transparency obligation and the right to opt out that are also included in European regulations. In my opinion, the European solution should have expressly mentioned the right to the right to remuneration of creators. Our bill on AI should be voted in the Senate next Thursday, and then submitted to the Chamber of Deputies. Look, I'm not sleeping this week because this bill, it's so hard to work to approve because big tech is against, of course, and the main issues of the bill is copyright, and the main issues on copyright is remuneration. And then we are very convicted that we are right to defend this point. If approved, this bill as it is, we will have the first law in the world to provide for the right to remuneration of works and interpretation used in the mining and training AI systems. In addition to acting at the national level to defend copyright, we is also active in international level, as I said before. For example, at an standing committee on copyright and related rights of the WIPO, Brazil leads the discussion to ensure that the issues of remuneration in the digital environment, streaming, and artificial intelligence are permanent topics of discussion in the committee. Particularly on artificial intelligence, some European members, and US, who are part of regional group of countries known as Group B, have been against including this subject as a permanent topic of the agenda. WIPO, in turn, has proposed the creation of a panel of experts who would study for a year and prepare a report on the relation between AI and copyright. We are against this idea, and not because we are afraid of discussing AI. Firstly, there is a risk that this group will be ideologically captured by the big tech companies. Second, on year is an eternity, considering the rapid pace of the AI technological development. And there is a risk that substantive discussion will be postponed with the excuse of waiting for the report to be completed. Lastly, no government representatives will participate in the panel discussion, and we are against this lack of transparency. We want to participate in this panel too. We will defend our participation, the country's participation. In addition to WIPO, we have also been very active in the G12, especially during Brazil presidency this year. We are able to agree on a declaration by the ministers of culture of the G12 members that emphasize the importance of adequate payment to right holders in digital environment. I sent this declaration to Felipe, and I invite you to know this declaration because it's the first time in G12 that 20, sorry, G20, we have a declaration about copyright, specifically about the digital environment, the streaming, and AI. The agreed declaration also encourage the consideration of adequate safeguards such as transparency on inputs and outputs, the AI model, and calls for the continuation of an international dialogue to guide and safeguard an ethical, safe, inclusive, trustworthy, and transparent AI that respects intellectual property rights. The ministerial declaration was endorsed in the leaders' declaration of G20 member states. And I will, my expectative is to discuss this situation in WIPO. We work hardly in G20 to have this declaration, and I will in the next meeting at WIPO, I will defend this declaration in this kind of discussion, because we need in the world discuss AI impact on copyright right holders. And I'm sorry to go now, but I have a meeting about AI regulation now with other ministers. And I want to thank everybody, and Felipe, Xará, Marcos, Souza, Luis, and other Marc and José, Ignacio. It's a pleasure to meet with you. Okay, thank you so much.
Really has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your positive attitude, defending the interests of culture and creators. And I wish you the best for next Thursday. And well, we are in touch. Next year. Yes. Okay. So thank you very much. We'll be in touch. I will pay attention to your text, and we will share it and consider it. Thank you. Marc, please, in Europe, Brussels. That's a good point. We had precisely the first law in the world about AI. And well, I think everybody knows how AI impact in the creators is running, but it's really important and relevant. Once Marcos has been talking about these initiatives that you talk us about this directive and actual initiatives on state of the art.
Thank you very much, Luis. So I will start by going back a bit in time, because to talk about the legislative framework about AI and copyright in Europe, we need to go back to the directive of 2019, the directive on copyright in the digital single market. There you have two exceptions for text and data mining. So this directive was adopted in 2019. There is one exception for research purposes for public institution, and there is then one other exception for commercial users that says that you can there should be an exception to copyright for text and data mining unless right holders have reserved their rights. So it was at the time, of course, you can imagine it was more than 5 years ago. Generative AI was not at all what it is today. But it has been, this text and data mining interpretation has been interpreted very broadly to cover everything related to generative AI. And at the same time, it has been very unclear and impossible for individual creators to reserve their rights. So so the situation has been very complicated, and now we in the last years we have seen another law, the EU AI Act, which is touching a little bit this link between AI and copyright. So it improves a bit the situation because it says that AI provider must comply with copyright law, and it also requires AI providers to publish a summary of the data used and to have code of practices about what they are doing. So for us, this EU AI Act, in a way, it's a step in the right direction, but then we cannot be satisfied only with the EU AI Act, because all the issues related to text and data mining, the reservation of rights, they are still there. So for us, we would caution, especially here, in Brazil, we would be against, this text and data mining exception, and people will tell you, yes, but you can opt out, but it's not easy as it is. Opting out has been very hard, and even when it's done, it's very, very often not respected. So we are in a very complicated situation now. We are following the discussion implementing the EU AI Act with the code of practice, but we really want the new European Parliament, the new European Commission to have again a look at this issue and to ensure three main principles: transparency, so to be able to know if your work has been used; consent, so to get an authorization; and remuneration. So we want to place those three notions, three principles: transparency, consent, remuneration, really at the heart of the policy agenda in Europe.
Okay, Dres, that's sometimes the results of a law that's it's running for a thing, but doesn't expect a new technology as AI, and we had this black hole of the exceptions that it's magnifying the AI. Okay, just a quick round to know how what do you think the Brazilian composers, your members at Musimagem Brazil, what are your concerns about AI?
Well, I think most of us, maybe everybody, changing the mic. I think almost everybody are concerned about the loss of job, and of course this is a turning point for a new paradigm about the work in music. But in fact, I would like to read something I wrote down. I read it somewhere, I don't remember, but the guy was referring about the expression mining data as an euphemism. They are not capturing gems underground, lost in time and with no owners. This appropriation occurs without our authorization, without any transparency, control, and of course, unfair monetary compensation to the creators. There is, however, something to mention. Here in Brazil, the Brazilian copyright law does not recognize a non-human creator. The use of music emulated by AI cannot generate copyright, as stated in the Chapter 2, Article 11 of the Law 9610. Author, quoting, author is the natural person who creates a literary, artistic, or scientific work, as long as the law remains as it is.
Big debate, yes. Jose, please, could you actualize us too from your side in Colombia, from your point of view?
As you said, big debate and very hard to address. We are in that topic, we are far behind, I have to admit. There are some initiatives in the Minister of Technology here talking about that. But I am very afraid that this has become a lawyers and copyright discussion. It's centered in that. And this is my point of view, I have to say. And we have to put the human part and the change of paradigm and way of living because of this. Because one day we thought that the AI is going to help us with the tedious tasks that we didn't want to do. But instead of that, is doing what we do as not only our way of living, but our way of being ourselves. So, but to be practical in this topic, I'm afraid that this is becoming a Napster thing. If you remember the Napster, all the lawyers behind Napster going after Napster, and now all the lawyers going after AI.
Yes.
And at the end, they're going to find their partner so they can play all together happy. In our days, we know exactly who it is. the big companies, music companies, they found their partner, so they don't have to worry about the Napster thing. I kind of agree of what Felipe was reading about the AI is not subject to copyright, but I'm afraid, and when I'm in those discussions, I'm afraid, okay, that's going to benefit, at the end is going to benefit the big production companies that they want to produce a lot of music with AI as they doing it right now, right? Is the people who are earning the most money, even more than the famous artists in the United States. We're fictional artists by hundreds in the different platforms. So it's a very difficult topic, and sometimes I think that maybe not to hold the copyright, but to make something like we call here in Spanish an arancel. In English, I believe is a tariff. Like we were exporting something, a tariff for creation of AI, for content created with AI. I don't know, I'm trying to be practical and going after ideas. While we keep going, because at the end, as Marcos said, like the big companies, big tech are behind this and they really want to go through this. Or sometimes I feel they want to delay this as much as they can so they can keep collecting that data and keep growing their models. So So I guess we have to be very practical about this, and if we find a way to create a tariff for that use and to make that tariff to go, I don't know, to the performing rights organization or something with the governments to mitigate the impact. And to finish my intervention, I will say, like, I was reading a study from France, from the CSAC, about that, and that made me think about the saying that follow the money, and that's what is happening. We are following the money because big data, big tech is investing. It passed from invest $4 billion in 2022 to invest $24 billion in 2023 on AI. So we have to follow that money, and we see that's
yeah, it's
something
running
to
a
do.
lot. It's running. The thing is running a lot, but this time, not as Napster you commented, we are more close to the issue than ever. So we have to be really quick too in the way to defend our interests and move forward. In this case of the tariff, really relevant is a big discussion actually in CISAC. And I think once the creators are not able to reserve their rights in practice, this tariff can be like a remuneration right of AI generated works, can be a solution. That what's the position, Marc, of ECSA on this?
Bueno, Luis, como
¿Cuál?
miembro de la Junta lo tendrías que saber. No, es broma. No, but I mean, for us, we see a lot of different solutions for generative AI. They are in Spain, for example, there is one solution which has been proposed by the Spanish authorities about extended collective licenses. We see also some other solution like some kind of right to remuneration that you were mentioning. We could think as well about some compensation for exception as well. But all of this is for us, we want, to approach the situation in a pragmatic way, but at the same time, we think it's very sad to lose the ability of authors and performers to give their consent if they want their works to be used by generative AI or not.
Yeah. The question is the opt-out is not working pretty well. It's not easy.
Clearly.
That's clear.
We were
that-
sorry, Luis, and Ignacio raised hand also because it's
Yes.
it's a huge topic. But I want to say something that we also discuss around here, and we were thinking something about the same as we have the screen time for the channels, but in this time is not screen time. I don't know if you understand that concept. The screen time is when the production companies, they are forced to have screen time made from the people of the country to play in certain hours, like premium time, prime time, right? Like to have that laws like screen time, but no screen time like creators time. So it's mandatory to have creators in these kind of projects, like we have like we have right now, right? Like we have to have this many shows from Spain in the platforms if you want to operate in Spain, something like that.
Okay, so unfortunately, this amazing debate has to end. We don't have more time. It's a pity because it's amazing and fascinating issue. But this is a good start of more fluid and relation between Latin American associations and European Alliance of Composers. I'm really grateful for your hospitality, and well, what to say? It's clear that from ECSA, we are really aware and convinced of the strength of the unique voice, the common voice of the composers to fight for our rights, and that's the way that should be the same everywhere, in all the countries, in all the authorial associations. So this is a good point to continue improving our movements, our initiatives, and share them just to improve them with the knowledge, with the information around the world that can be really, really positive and move on, make us move on really quickly if we are in a common strategy to defend our interests. So thank you, Musimagem. Thank you, MUCINE. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Marc, ECSA team, for organizing this initiative. Well, we see soon, I hope. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Musimagem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. See you next
It was an
time.
honor.
Thank you.